Welcome to Real Estate Talk, part of the Realty Media Group. We also produce The Property Show, Real Estate Uncut and CoreLogic's auction updates. All available for catch-up anytime at realty.com.au. Before we get underway, thanks to BMT Tax Depreciation, Printforce and Propertyology for their support.
Well, I'm back. It's a Kevin Free Zone again this week, and I'm joined by a very special co-host. It's a bit of a reunion of sorts, and in fact, Bryce Holdaway, my old television husband.
Hello, Ronnie.
He's joining me. Hello there. How are you? From
a
different part of the world. It's from lockdown. Welcome, Bryce.
Lockdown stage 3, Ronnie, not stage 4. So I'm just on the wings of stage 4 here in Melbourne. But it's good to see you. Always good to see you.
It's lovely to see you too. Can you believe that he's actually coming up to 10 years since we started filming Relocation Australia?
It does seem like a long time ago, but 10 years, wow. No, I probably wasn't as aware as you are that the 10-year anniversary was coming.
Neither of us look a day older. But do you remember, see, I don't know if viewers here have ever watched the show, that first series, we had 10 episodes, one couple per episode, but 2 property searches for each couple. And our very first shoot was a couple called Goo and John, and you and I were chucked in from the onto the hot plate of television straight up, right? A lot of fast.
Oh gosh, that does seem like a long time ago, Ronnie. But that episode actually put us on the map a little bit because we were coming on the back of a very successful UK version of the show, and the 2 hosts, Phil and Kirsty, were very well loved in this country. So you and I were kind of the imposters, but that particular couple made life, let's just say, exceptionally challenging for you and I. And I think that endeared us to the audience because in the end it was mission impossible. But 10 years, wow, that's gone quick.
So we were, for those of you who haven't never watched the series, Relocation Australia, and the other one we did 3 series of, which was Location Australia, the shows with the most amount of syllables ever. And I do believe they are constantly on repeat on Foxtel. So there's 40 episodes out there on rotation. And in fact, I even dragged out my old DVDs the other day and had a bit of a reminiscent.
Wow.
Walked down memory lane. Friend had never seen one.
I can't watch Relocation, Ronnie. I've got to say that was a baptism of fire. You were brilliant in that series. I reckon I was the handbrake. But from Location onwards, I really enjoyed it. But being thrust into the world of television, I don't know if you can remember back to those days what it felt like for you, but for me, those first 10 episodes were just incredibly daunting, were they? How were you in those?
They were excruciating in so many ways. I think my biggest thing, and I remember at the beginning of it, I said, I will eat my hat. Not that I have many hats, but I will eat my hat if anybody actually buys 2 properties in an episode. And amazingly enough, we actually had 2 couples buy 2 properties. One of them, if you remember, now I've got to remember their names, but they, your favourites, Peter Marie, were your favourites, yes. And we bought a property in Melbourne, investment for them, and also a house in the Gold Coast. And you know what? Years later, I discovered that my dad had grown up diagonally opposite that apartment in Melbourne that they bought.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was doing a bit of a trek down there for my dad's 80th to retracing his pathways as a child. And I'm like, I'm standing across the road going outside where he lived at the age of 4, looking at, I think we bought across there. So anyway, that's
I remember that auction because little do people know at the time, we were professional buyers agents, right? So we've been buying for a long time. But I've got to say, I wish, and I'd be interested in your feedback, I wish we could actually get 2 cameras to turn up every time we turn up at auction, because it is incredibly intimidating for the people that are bidding against us. 9 times out of 10 it works for us, but there is the occasional 1 out of 10 where someone wants their 15 minutes in the sun, and it certainly they see it as an opportunity to grandstand. But it'd be nice to have 2 cameras every time.
It's very true, but we have to be careful sometimes that we don't overly encourage people to bid because they see us bidding and think, oh, must be a good property. I was actually at an auction once where I was standing there as a complete bystander. One of my team was bidding, and I didn't realise it till afterwards that a person that didn't bid, who was actually, they didn't bid after someone else was the underbid, so the third underbidder, and they said to me afterwards they were waiting for me to bid. And they were sort of deciding whether it was worth it or not, whether I was going to bid. And I didn't bid, but my team member actually bought the property at much lower price than we expected. And I thought, that's really the great value. My value isn't in bidding anymore. It's in turning up and making it look like I'm not interested.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. Well done. Yeah. But you remember when we had that big fight walking down the street in, I think it was Cairns, wasn't it? Where...
Yes, no, it was in Byron Bay.
Byron Bay. Oh yeah, it was Byron Bay, and then I think you and I had an argument with the producer in Cairns or something. But it's interesting that because quite often people say, is it just made for television, or is that actually true? And it's like, well, you got to see probably the better part of 2 weeks and concentrated 1 week in the space of 48 minutes, and what it takes to put a deal together on television, I got to say, is just excruciating at times. So there's a few stories that we could share, but
yes.
It's real. We're dealing with the market. We're trying to navigate cameras and people and properties that are not exclusive to us. So it was a bit fun.
Yeah, talk about adding complexity to what's already a daunting and difficult task. That's for sure. Interestingly enough, we get asked a lot of questions about, comparing us with the UK or the UK show, I should say, and also whether these situations are actually real life. And we're going to come back and join you very shortly and talk about a few more anecdotes about the reality of television and buying property at the same time.
Successful property investors know the value of leverage, but as many as 80% are willing to leave sometimes thousands of dollars of unclaimed benefits on the table every year by overlooking depreciation. Depreciation is the wear and tear of a building and its plant and equipment. The ATO allows the owners of any income-producing property to claim depreciation as a deduction, meaning you will pay less tax. BMT's fee is 100% tax deductible. Call BMT Tax Depreciation on 1300 728 726 now for a free assessment of your likely deductions. That's 1300 728 726 or use the link at Real Estate Talk.
Welcome back to the show. I want to talk briefly about Adelaide. Defying the slumps that we've seen in many of the capitals, Adelaide's housing market has been faring very, very well. So it's important that both owners and agents remain as well informed as possible. One powerful and unique way to analyse the Adelaide market is with the People's Choice of Housing report. Now, the People's Choice of Housing closely analyses hundreds of Adelaide suburbs and nearby towns, examining not only affordability but livability based on crucial lifestyle factors such as local schools, bus and train connections, crime and the distance from the CBD. Topping the housing list at the moment, Modbury North, which thanks to a more affordable median house price and the fact that it's well served with schools, comes up on top. As well as schools, there are licensed venues and public transport. And for unit buyers, Paradise, Pasadena and Door Park offer the best mix. The power of the People's Choice of Housing report is that it helps people identify not just where they can afford to live, but where they want to live. Very important. And if that's not enough, it's all absolutely free. So to make sure that you're fully informed, go online to People's Choice and download the latest version today. It is the People's Choice of Housing. You can use the link on Real Estate Talk to find it.
Well, here we are again. I'm back with Bryce Holdaway, who was my TV co-host on Location Australia.
I thought I was your TV husband.
Oh, yes, my TV husband.
I tell everyone you're my TV wife, so it's only fair.
Lucky man, bigamist, haha. So how many times though did we get compared, and I think unfairly, with Kirsty and Phil?
A lot. Let's be honest, it was a lot, and fair enough too. I mean, we were standing on the shoulders of giants. They'd done all the hard yards. They had. Do you know? I think they'd done like 8 to 10 seasons before we got to have a go. So, I mean, we were
veterans.
very, and we were fortunate, right? So, what was interesting is I only discovered their show when they were sort of 5, 6, 7 seasons deep, right? I don't know how early you got onto it, Ronnie, but when you actually do get an opportunity to circle back to their first and second season, you go, oh, actually they were a bit rusty in the early days too, you know. But so our chapter 1 was being compared with their chapter 10. So, but fair enough, that's life. We took it on the chin, right? But it was certainly fair enough. We got our fair share of comparisons.
Absolutely. I think though, I did love the show. I could no longer watch their show though after we started making it. I think I was sort of a bit spoiled. I knew what was going on in the background, i.e. what it takes to make one of those shows. And the other thing that, so I get asked a lot, particularly by clients, when they're just about to sign up with us, they want to know, well, how long does it take before we actually present 3 or 4 properties to them for them to make a choice from? And I think that's the biggest reality check for most people, to realize that it's really hard to find 3, even 2 properties to show in the same time frame to a client that actually suits their requirements. So how challenging when you've got a camera on you and these people are reacting quite often quite badly.
Exactly, and what's important is in that first season when we were trying to learn get our feet under the table. It was I don't want to break too much of the television magic, Ronnie, but let's just say you and I don't get involved in the property selection until right at the very pointy end, and then you have a discussion with a producer that says. This is their brief here, and this property is not even close to that brief. But the producer looks at you and goes, yeah, but you're not seeing the big picture. There is amazing pretty pictures that we can take of the view in this property. It's like, yeah, but it's my credibility here. So there was some interesting. I remember they showed us a property that we jumped in, and we had to encourage the clients that it was worthwhile to look in it. It was steep. It was on a major road. They had young kids and they wanted a flat block. I'm like, this.
I think I remember that one. That was in the first series, wasn't it? Up in Palm Beach.
Correct. Exactly. You definitely remember it. So I'm looking at you going, Ronnie, help me out here. But that was in the early days. Everyone was finding their feet towards the end of the season 2, 3, and 4. We obviously got to have our input in that and help them. But you're right. Getting 4 properties to line up in a set week when someone has taken time off, where we've got to be able to show them, and then if you think about the fact that not only do we have to ask to film it, but we've got to the real estate agent then has to go back to the vendor and say, so there's someone who wants to look through it with 2 cameramen, a soundy, 2 contributors, 2 hosts, like cast of thousands, and
take 4 hours.
For the world's longest open for inspection. So. But no, I mean, we are. And
how excruciating is it when on the threshold you open the door and you can see on their faces they hate it, and you've got 4 hours of filming.
And I'm like, oh, when's Veronica turning up? Do you remember that time I rang you? I was on the Sunshine Coast, and I said, Ronnie, when are you turning up? And you go, what do you mean? I said, where are you? You said, oh, I'm at Bondi Junction.
Looking for lights. With light shopping.
I'm at Bondi Junction looking for lights. Why is that, Bryce? I said, well, we're on the Sunshine Coast expecting you to turn up this afternoon for property number 3. Where are you? And you just got, oh, I've missed it. So, needless to say, you weren't in my side of the story on that episode.
I needed a PA, clearly. See, that's what happens when you renovate and film a show at the same time. Now, it's all a bit too challenging. Now, I know a lot of people ask us, when's the next series? I think we can be fairly safe to say there's probably not going to be another one of that, but you've graced our television screens of late. Hosting, well, when you say co-host, you've been host of your own segment of Escape from the City on the ABC. And we're going to come back and have a bit of a chat with you about what's happening out there in regional Australia and what's the attraction, and you might even share your own personal story.
Love to.
With the evolution of social media, marketing of property is no longer linear. Consumers are influenced differently. The Property Show is unique in that it empowers agents to connect with buyers and sellers through personalised content, social media and artificial intelligence. The Property Show delivers personalised, laser-focused marketing by combining new media, social media and audience targeting, and gives the agent a digital voice. See how well the Property Show works, and then let's get started telling the world about your property. See it now exclusively at realty.com.au.
Now, Bryce, when we were filming relocation, in fact, some of the location people wanted to escape from the city, quite literally, and some of them did. And of course, now in this COVID world, it's apparently becoming quite a trend. It's search to get outside of the metropolis, and you yourself have actually done it. What do you think are the key factors that people look for, and then those that they should look for but aren't looking for?
Well, lifestyle design, right? So I think that as a result of COVID, you're right, a couple of things. I have escaped from the city myself and absolutely loving it, but it was really at the end of 5 to 7 years worth of decision making with my wife and I as to whether or not we'd take the plunge. I'm a Perth boy. I married a Melbourne girl, but we got to know each other in Queensland up on the Gold Coast. So I always thought that we would go back to Queensland. So each and every year she goes, are we going back to the beach? And I'm like, yeah. Let's talk about it next year. And after about 5 of those years in a row, she said, we're not going in a hurry, are we? She goes, what about heading down to the surf coast of Victoria? And I'm going, are you kidding me? I mean, have you been in the water down there? It is freezing. But now that I'm down here, I love it. They've got these new things these days, Veronica. You may have heard of it. It's called a wetsuit, and it actually keeps you nice and warm when you get in there. So it actually works. So all of my fears around freezing were unfounded. But I think fringe commutable locations, I think will benefit. So if you think about your part of the world, Ronnie, you've got Central Coast, even up to Newcastle, even if you go back down towards the Shire. If you go to the northern part of the Sunshine Coast, the southern part of the Gold Coast, back to my hometown of Perth, you've got Mandurah. In Adelaide, you've got Port Noarlunga. So these areas where some people would think that they're not commutable, while some do, all of a sudden, when you can now negotiate with your employer that the greatest work from home experiment we'll ever experience now works, it kind of makes sense if you can negotiate 2 or 3 days where you can Zoom meetings. It makes sense that people are going to go towards those lifestyle locations, and for quite a few people, they want to get away from the city. So I think there'll be a trend towards it. I don't think it's going to be a massive rush. I think I had a mate that bought a property in Indooroopilly in Brisbane, Ronnie, just after the 2011 flood. And the water was up to the roof, right? So purchased it at an enormous discount, got the renovation done, moved into it. And at the time, everyone was thinking, you're mad. Whereas now he's looking like a genius. He probably got $200,000 to $300,000 worth of equity on day one because it's a distant memory. And I think that in 2 or 3 years' time, when we're talking about COVID, I think it'll be a distant memory. And I think it will encourage a number of people to move to regional locations, but I don't think it's, the last person to leave the CBD, turn the lights out, because I think there's just way too many cultural advantages from staying into the big smoke. So that was a long answer to your short question. I think there will be a trend towards escaping from the city. And I think that those locations that have lifestyle in spades will benefit. And I think the values of property in those areas will get a nice little spike.
So is it the lifestyle that most people are chasing? You know, I mean, you've been on the show that you've been hosting most recently has been specifically people wanting to leave the city. What's the most common reason?
Yeah, just to escape the rat race. You know, they didn't sign up for. You know, if you know very well, Ronnie, more than most living in Sydney, but you've got these very small blocks of land in tight, cramped conditions, and then you get stuck into the rat race, and you kind of think, wow, is there a bit more to it than this? So, you know, the fact is, you know, I could take my kids across the road. We can go for a surf, or we can go for a stand-up paddleboard. The community where I live is amazing, and the opportunity to, you know, I go down to Lawn for a barbecue on the weekend now. It only takes 45 minutes. Just the enormity of the lifestyle that's on offer. Because I always think that you've got to have some access to a capital city job market prior to COVID, because that's where the dollars and cents are in terms of where the big multinationals are, and that's where they're dishing out the big salaries. Whereas when you're in regional, clearly that wasn't necessarily the case. But now you can actually get a bit of both. So yeah, I do think the locations that deliver lifestyle second none. Think about going to the Central Coast in Sydney. It's affordable real estate there versus northern beaches of Sydney. So it's just that little bit more of an affordability play for a lot of people, while still being able to commute for six-figure salaries.
And I think the commute part is important too, because obviously that versatility to be able to potentially go into the city for 2 days a week maybe, and then work from home the rest of the time. And it's a good distinction between the northern beaches of Sydney versus, say, the Central Coast. Not all of the Central Coast, but part of it is serviced by a rail line, whereas the northern beaches are serviced by a bendy bus. So yeah, slightly different.
Yes. Yeah.
Commutable.
And the difference in price is enormous, right? So yeah. So I genuinely think it's you know, it's lifestyle, and for those people who want more out of life than the cultural norm of a big city. Now, mate, Ronnie, you know, I'm a small town boy from Perth, right? So I live in Torquay on the surf coast, and it feels like Perth. It's got the same vibe. I'm used to smaller populations. But you grew up in the big smoke of New South Wales and Sydney, so your norm is different to my norm, right? So I think it really just comes down to having that diversity. But I think COVID has opened up to more people possibility than ever before.
I think that's one of the positives of COVID. It has, for many people, have focused on what they've lost, whereas a lot of other people have actually focused on, well, what does this open up? How does this change the way that I view the world, and what possibilities come with that? Which you know, for some people, actually looked at as being quite exciting. I think that you and I often recommended to people, look, if you're going to move locations, it doesn't matter whether you're going from one city to another city, or whether you're going from a city to regional, or vice versa. Don't be afraid to rent, you know, because the area is so different, and also that just those local nuances. You think about the amount of times when we did a show and we'd find things. If you just went down the pub, you'd find why that property hasn't sold, or why that one is priced for a couple of $100,000 more than that one, because the locals know stuff that you don't know. And I found that to be one very, very interesting learning through doing the series that I don't think will ever leave me, and I think that probably still holds firm now, right?
Absolutely. I rented, Ronnie. We came down, we packed up everything up in the big smoke, and we rented a property in Torquay. And to be honest, I am the living, breathing example of what you just said. The suburb, the part of Torquay that I wanted to live in when I moved down is not the place that I settled on. And as I sit here now in my house, I'm stoked that my first decision wasn't my final decision. So I'm the living, breathing epitome of what you just said.
Well, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear that you take your own advice.
Yes.
Well, we'll come back and we'll have one final segment where you and I swap some stories about what we did learn through running together around the countryside, helping people buy property.
There could be more money in your investment property than you realise. BMT tax depreciation finds, on average, between $5,000 and $10,000 in deductions in the first full financial year for residential property investors. They'll work with your accountant to make sure no depreciation deduction is missed. They even provide comprehensive ATO-compliant tax depreciation schedules that last the life of the property, up to 40 years. And their fee is 100% tax deductible. Call BMT Tax Depreciation on 1300 728 726 now for a free assessment of your likely deductions.
And we're back. You know, Bryce, this has been fun hanging out with you today. I think that somebody should pick us up and actually run a new show with us because, you know, it was a lot of fun working with you around the country.
I do miss you, Ronnie. I do miss you.
Now, one of the things that I am often asked, in fact, quite often when people meet me, they say, it's bizarre, you really are exactly like you are on the show. And it's true. I think I'm a little bit older than you. So for me, I just went, you know what, I'm just going to be myself. And if they don't like me, we'll make one series. And if they do, we might eke 4 out of it. Did you find that you had to actually learn special skills or have to actually modify your style in any way?
Yeah, no, you were much more authentic as yourself early. It took me a little while to get to that because, look, to be honest, Ronnie, you've been a listing agent. You were a buyer's agent helping owner-occupiers. I'm a degree qualified accountant who's a financial planner who spent my whole career up until that point helping investors buy properties, not owner-occupiers, investors, right? So I'm comfortable in demographics and is this a good suburb and why should you think of investing there? But as soon as it come, you know, walking around going, all right, Spanish mission architecture, look at these beautiful, like I was a fish out of water, right? So for me in those early days, it was about getting a new dialogue and a new understanding around, because I love property and I love the stories behind the people, but it was just kind of all this stuff coming at once. Whereas you were, I think you're 1 or 2 years older than me, Ronnie. And very comfortable in what you were doing and what your space was. So you transitioned really well. I feel really comfortable with the persona that I have now. But that first season, I found it daunting. I found it difficult, and I didn't adjust as quickly as you did.
It was quite funny actually because you were so funny off air, and on air it was like, Bryce, give us the jokes. You're a funny dude. You're a funny guy. I reckon that finally, if anyone hangs around and works out which series that you actually kicked into, the funny guy comes out. And well, I remember seeing it go, yes, everyone's getting a taste of the full Bryce.
Well, there comes a point, as you know, that the camera being there becomes second nature. And as soon as that happens, then you feel comfortable. And I think I don't know if you can remember that far back, but I used to think I was smashing my career with every single word that came out of my mouth because I didn't understand the concept of the editing room floor. I didn't understand the concept that not every single thing that I was saying every single day with this hours and hours of footage wasn't going to make it. And I probably didn't catch this quick enough, and you probably caught it quicker than me. They were actually trying to find the good bits.
Yeah,
they weren't actually trying to find the rubbish bits, right? So if I had have actually had some peace with that early on, I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more.
They're not trying to catch us out. Interestingly enough, I remember in the audition, one of the producers, I think it was Brooke, said, look, we'll be filming 50 hours of footage for a 48-minute show. And it was like 50 hours. And then that's what I thought, you know, it's so much of that, just do the simple math, hits the cutting room floor. It doesn't matter if I stuff it up.
Yeah.
So I think I'm lucky I heard that.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, clearly I missed that. I didn't go to the orientation day. But,
the classic was, I was quite daunted by you though, because you knew Perth, you had lived in Queensland and worked up there, you lived in Melbourne. And so there's 3 states that you had total coverage, a total understanding of, at least in the capital cities. And I am Sydney born and bred and only ever lived here and only ever worked here. And then I'm thrust out there in these different markets. And so very steep learning curve, and I've learned how to find out what you don't know and then to find it to make sure you know it. But also the way that property is transacted is so different across every state in this country. And that was a massive learning curve for me. And I think I turned to you quite a lot through that time to go, okay, well, how do we do an offer? How do you do an offer in Queensland? How do you do an offer in Victoria?
Well, yeah, and that was an advantage, but pity the producers did a lot of New South Wales shoots, right? So it went straight into your strength. But whilst we're dishing out compliments, I mean, your street savvy around being able to think on your feet, I think's remarkable and second to none, right? So that we used to feed off each other, and I used to lean on your strengths, you used to lean on mine. We used to make a really good team. But making television, I'll just see if I can tell this quick story, but it sort of epitomises behind the scenes, right? But I remember I was showing a couple some properties on the Gold Coast. They were really nice properties, and I'm standing on the point at Burleigh looking towards the Surfers Paradise skyline, and we're having that wrap-up chat. And there was one property where if they wanted to go for it, we had to go to auction. And I get to the wrap-up chat and they go, no, we don't want to go for this. And I'm thinking, great, I've just got a newborn at home, which is like days old. So I took the opportunity to jump on a plane, go home. And then as I had to fly home via Sydney to get to Melbourne, and my phone's pinging as soon as I land in Sydney, and the producers are ringing me going, Bryce, they actually really love the property. And I go, what happened? They said, well, they went home and they looked on the internet and they realised you were actually showing them the best properties available. I'm like, I know. So I got home about midnight, and then I woke up in the morning. I'm pushing my newborn up to the cafe in the morning. And the producer rings and she goes, oh, look, they want to do it. And I'm thinking, yeah, no problem. Send a camera crew around to my house. And she goes, no, this one we think would be better if you're there. And I'm like, I just got home at midnight. And they go, yeah, we know. So I just looked at Andrea, my wife. She's given me one of those looks like, just do what you got to do, buddy. But like, don't expect me to be.
Don't come home.
Yeah. So I jump on a plane. I'm pretty much getting a cab, and I said to the guy, if you can get me to the cab to make this flight, I'll double your fare, right? Because I was handing around Foxtel cab vouchers, so I could do that, right? This particular person, I felt like I was in a game of Mario Brothers, collecting the mushrooms on the tollways on the way through. I get onto the plane, and then we land. We're delayed. I get on the plane, and then the engineer comes on. They said, not Bryce. They said, passengers, if you could all look out the window to the left, you'll see there's a Jetstar plane, 2 planes up, and we all look out. And we go, yep, and they go, that's good, because you're about to get off the plane we're on. We're about to get onto that one. So we're all like cats trying to get off because there was engineering problems. So this is a real long story. I try and make it as short as possible. I get up to the Gold Coast. The producers are going, where are you? And I'm ringing them on the plane. I'm running out. And you remember the old days of the iPhone, how it had that lightning bolt when you ran out of charge? So I get there. I get on the plane on the Gold Coast, and then I've run up to the door on the Gold Coast. I plug my phone in. And then you used to have to wait about 5 minutes for the phone to charge. So I'm waiting for the 5 minutes ring. The producer said, I'm here, no problem. They go, quick, come here. I had to call the agent. They had to keep everything a secret just to get that television moment. I get up to the thing. The producer goes, you're right. And I'm going, I am so flustered. It's not funny. And they go, right, ready? 3, 2, 1, open the door. Then when I've organised for the agent to ring me at the right time to tell me the news. And then they jump over the table. They hug me. They go, oh, this is so great. This is so amazing. And then I walk out and I just collapse into the hallway and I go, if only everyone knew what it took to actually get that moment on television real, because it was real. We had to, because if we told them it would never be the same again. It was just, and you could probably tell a million stories too, but it's just, so this is the real stuff that happens, right? It actually happened. We were actually doing live deals, and we had to keep the television jeopardy alive because each episode was about $250,000 each. So the producer's like, do whatever you need to do, but just don't stuff that moment up.
And you were so much better at keeping a straight face when you're trying to tell them they got the property. Whereas me, I'd always give it up because I get this little smirk on my face. It on you.
You did. I'd look at my wife and go, she got it. That's the one. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can turn off the television. The ads, the sponsorships, it all failed if I was the one doing the deal because I'd give it away.
No, but it was all a bit of fun. So I mean, I don't know how you see it. I'm professionally blessed. I am so lucky to have done the shows with you. I'm so lucky to have done Escape from the City. You and I love property. We get to travel around the country and see rainforest properties up in far north Queensland, Tasmanian acreages over in, like, it was just such an awesome time that you and I had. And I look back at it, I just feel really fortunate.
Yeah, no, it was a great opportunity, and I have to say I learnt so much. And even what I'm doing with Home Buyer Academy now, you know, helping first home buyers across the country and mentoring them online, I can actually picture a lot of what they're going through and where they're buying and all that sort of stuff, only because I had that experience. So it's actually been fantastic. It's been so good catching up with you. I'm sort of tongue in cheek when I say we need another series, but because neither of us actually have time to do one. But I do. This has reminded me of how much I love working with you. So thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie.
Real Estate Talk, part of the Realty Media Group. We also produce the Property Show, Real Estate Uncut, and CoreLogic's auction update shows. All available for catch-up anytime at realty.com.au. Thanks to BMT Tax Depreciation, Printforce and Propertyology for their support. Watch out for us in your inbox next weekend or catch us anytime at realty.com.au.